across a lot of media. For those of you that don't know him, and I hope a lot of you do, so he worked in painting, collage, photography, writing, filmmaking, and performance as well. And he was also really centrally an activist, an AIDS activist, but also an activist for free speech. He, went sort of battle with Jesse Helms about those sorts of things. And specifically, he was an advocate for the power, I think, of affect, so of rage and sadness, particularly, as a political tool. And I think his work is incredibly emotional, explicitly political, but that political agenda in all of his work is really animated by emotion and affect. So anger or grief or melancholy is the thing that really drives the politics in his work. And I think this is particularly true in his writing, and his books are amazing. If you've ever read them, he published 3 books, Sounds in the Distance, Close to the Knives, and Memories That Smell Like Gasoline. Really amazing books. And so the film that we're about to watch, Fire in My Belly, I think is no exception to these qualities that I've just described in his work, right? Like an intense political agenda that's really fueled by affect and rage and anger and sadness as well. So filmed in Mexico in 1987, it's an experimental film in that it aggressively uses montage to make conceptual, affective, and visual connections between things. So connections between desire and death, fire and blood, the sacred and the profane, for example. And I think the affective quality of his work is particularly evident when you look at it in contrast to a lot of other AIDS activist work from the late 1980s, TV groups like this, whose work was much more utilitarian and didactic. Like it kind of said things like, the CDC is doing this and it's fucked up and this is what we have to do about it, right? And so that work couldn't always sometimes carry the sadness or the melancholy or the anger or the rage that I think Wojnarowicz's work carries. It was much more sort of directly utilitarian and political. So I think his work in particular in relationship to that stuff is kind of compelling. And you know, and I think we can have a discussion about the formal qualities of this film, right? The way that it sort of works with montage, or the way that it uses Catholic iconography, ironically, in that Catholic iconography represents suffering and sacrifice, but I think in Wojnarowicz's world, it's also the cause of suffering and sacrifice, right? There's this sort of amazing thing that happens with that iconography in this piece. But I actually think it's ironic for us to talk about this film formally, or to talk about it as a film, because I don't think this film was censored for formal reasons, right? It was censored for political reasons. I know for a fact that John Boehner, is that how we pronounce his name? I just want to call him Boner. John Boehner did not actually watch this film. And I don't think that the Catholic League watched it either, right? So I don't think it actually makes sense for us to talk about this film formally, because I think it was censored for political reasons. So I'm going to actually suggest that we watch this film politically tonight. And by that I mean, I think it's outrageous that this piece was censored, in that this is just a sad moment in a long history of sad arts censorship, and by that also sad arts funding, I think you could say. But I think we are here tonight because of representational politics and the powerfully destructive actions of a powerful institution. I think all of this is worthy of our anger. But as I was revisiting Wojnarowicz's this morning and kind of thinking about what I wanted to say, there was a kind of spectral presence of that affect, that emotion, that sadness, and that anger that was kind of sitting with me as I was thinking about his work. And so this is what I want to say, or how I think we should watch this film. What is actually, I think, worthy of our sadness and our rage is that AIDS is still a disease of the disenfranchised, the poor, people in underdeveloped parts of the world, and aid-dependent countries. And the right wing has once again successfully hijacked the language used to describe oppression and bigotry, right? They call this video hate speech, effectively empty this language of all of its power to actually describe its power, while gay politics has devolved into an exclusively rights-based movement in our country, which I don't think actually can carry our anger or sadness in the way that Wojnarowicz's work can. The energies of gay politics seem exclusively focused on winning admittance into institutions that we actually should probably be critiquing, marriage and the military, for example. And I think Wojnarowicz would be saddened and outraged by this, right, if you're here to watch his film. And so hopefully the censorship of this video will help us listen to his rage again, and possibly hopefully help us find ours, right, in this moment as we watch his film. And of course, Wojnarovicz died in 1992 of AIDS at the age of 37.